I've said this time and time again, but sometimes the simplest niches on Shopify are the ones that can scale the biggest. And in today's video, we're going to be dissecting and breaking down a Shopify legendary store. This is an S tier brand, if you could consider it that. It's true classic, and they've done over $250 million in annual sales before, which is pretty unbelievable. That's literally $20 million a month, a little bit over that, which is pretty awesome, right? That's goals, you could say. We all want to achieve those kinds of numbers. So we're going to break it down. We're going to explore it. We're going to break it down into a science, which is what we typically do on this channel. So we'll dissect their sites, their landing pages, some of their advertising on Meta, some of their advertorials that they're using. This is a little bit of an interesting one. And even some of the comments that they're getting on their ads so that we can see maybe where there's points of contention or just gaps in the market for you to enter potentially. So we'll start out by just browsing some of their sites, some of their products. We'll do the best sellers. I love doing the best sellers just because these are the ones that sell the best, quite simply. So one of the things that they do really, really well is offer bundles. So that's the first thing that I notice about this that is enabling them to scale so big is the default price is $89. And the reason why is because they sell these in packs, right? So if you buy a 3-pack, it's $50. If you buy a 6-pack, it's $89.99. And if you buy a 12-pack, which is the best deal, it's $149.99. So this allows them to get a higher average order value from every single person that decides to buy something on the site. And you may think that that's going to reduce conversion rates. You know, if this said $20, it would convert better. Sure, it may convert better, but not as drastically as you think, right? That may be a bad example, but my point is that if you bundle things together, you can see the per item cost, which is actually cheaper than it would have been if they sold it on a single, just a product by product basis. By bundling them together, the customer gets a better deal and the brand gets a higher average order value from each customer, which allows them to make more money and run more ads. These guys run a ton of ads, right? 1,500 different results. And these are active results, right? That doesn't count all the ads in the graveyard that have just not stood the test of time for them. And as you see, one thing we can see from their marketing is a ton of static images, a ton of videos, UGC videos. They're literally doing a little bit of everything. And we'll dissect this deeper here in just a second. But let's continue with this lander. So another thing I really love is this cashback. I've actually never seen this before. Unlock 20% cashback by signing up for emails and texts. So it's pretty much like a discount, but they're calling it cashback. So I'm guessing they're giving them a gift card or something. This is actually really brilliant. Very, very cool way to get somebody to subscribe to your email list without bombarding them with pop-ups. I'm going to take notes on that one mentally. And actually, I take back what I said. You actually can build your own pack or buy single t-shirts, which is really nice. But I do think the smarter option is just the bundles. And personally, if I was starting a brand like this, I would just copy that. Of course, they're much more advanced. But if you were just starting, I would just copy that bundle idea. I think it's really smart, especially since you'll need to make more money from each customer if you want to scale profitably with meta ads. Now, everything else aside from the buy box is pretty simple. The buy box is actually the most important place on your Shopify store. So, I'm glad that they have a really great one. They have this manifest sort of chat bot here, which is kind of interesting. I'm surprised that they don't just have a website chat bot. I think that may be better, but they may have tested that and this converts better. I would be interested to know any sort of stats from any of my CRO friends, conversion rate optimization. Let me know if you've tested both of these things. I would be curious to see what actually converts better. Now, that's pretty much it for the site. Super simple. This is where they're mainly driving traffic, but let's actually confirm that by going to some of their ads and clicking on Shop Now. So when you click on Shop Now, it takes you to the product page that I literally was just talking about. I predicted that, which was a pretty easy prediction, so I shouldn't toot my own horn too much here. One thing I want to show you too is I did analyze this with the Shopilab software. This is a software that I own. It's super cool. I use it for all research related purposes, and we have an accelerator attached to it as well that connects directly to your account here. so that you can join our Discord, get one-on-one support, and join weekly calls with us. It's super fun. But the point is that I found a couple different advertorials here actually that they're running. So they're running this LP right here, the Try Now LP, which is actually a really, really smart advertorial that they tested. And if you don't know what advertorials are or listicles, pre-lander, I actually just like to call it pre-lander. I think that's just the best way to put it. A pre-lander is basically where you can educate a customer before they make a buying decision. And it's actually a clever way to dial in your customer. You actually may get a higher conversion rate through something like this because you're priming the customer before they buy. And this can work extremely well with Meta because when you think about it, on Meta, people are not shopping around, right? People are just consuming short form content these days, and that's all they're doing on Meta. They're not necessarily thinking, I hope somebody shows me like the perfect product so that I can buy it. There's no buy intent. You kind of are creating that demand, that buy intent through your ads. So a good way to kind of like unravel that impulse buy is to maybe add a little bit of friction that actually gets them hyped up. So this allows you to kind of have a really seamless funnel of somebody that just, you pique their interest with the ad, you sold them a little bit, and then the advertorial really nails the story, really sells them. And then of course, product page and checkout instead of, just straight to product page and trying to get them to buy. Of course, that's the standard. That's what works. But this is definitely something you could test against your normal landing pages in order to get better results. It's something we do at the agency, at Shopilab.com. If you want to check out what we do, we only work with brands that have established revenue. But I figured I should mention this in case you are a brand out there and you want to have us run your ads, whether it's on TikTok, Meta, or Google. But if we take a look at this lander, it's pretty nice. So they say try free before you buy. This is a very, very, risky offer, but I'm sure it converts like crazy. So you can get a 10-day free trial, free returns, and pay for what you keep. This is a bold offer. I'm not sure if they're still running this advertorial. I just found it through the Shopilab analysis that I did over there. But this is kind of crazy. I'm sure they're charging for shipping. I'm not going to check right now because I'm going to have to put in my information and I don't want to have to blur it out. I'm very sorry. But you can go for yourself and actually let me know in the comments if they are charging for shipping. I'm sure they're charging for shipping, but my guess is that it's a big shipping price, like something like $15 or even $20 for shipping, but maybe not. So, go check it out. But this is a very smart kind of funnel, especially for a lot of guys that are always skeptical about these kinds of things. And then they're just kind of talking about how it's trusted by 4 million people. 81% feel more confident. 84% feel it accentuates their arms. They know their demographics so well. Like they know that the men that buy this, they care about those things, right? So they mention them. And a fit guarantee. Then an FAQ. Very simple stuff, but this could work extremely well. I do want to check also another thing super fast. Over here, I want to use this traffic checker just to see how much traffic they're actually doing right now. 2.6 million monthly visitors. Wow. And I noticed on the LP that they say trusted by 4 million men worldwide. So I wanted to check where they're actually getting a lot of traffic from. And of course, no surprise there, US makes up the majority of their traffic, but 7.2% and 6% is from UK and Canada. That's pretty substantial. That's a lot of people. So I love that. I love when brands actually target worldwide and have a global presence. Of course, I've seen brands that scale to 40 million a month just through the US, but it's always cool to see brands exploring other markets and driving a lot of that traffic to just like one website. It may not be the best practice for return on ad spend, but I feel like at scale, it probably is the best practice because you have a bigger total addressable market. Who knows? Maybe not, but it's kind of cool to see brands targeting different countries. Now, the next thing is their ads. Let's take a look at their ads. So if we see, these are the latest ads that they've launched. So they started running these literally yesterday. So on Friday, it's likely that they do creative testing on Fridays. That's what a lot of brands do. That's what we tend to do for a lot of clients as well, is we'll launch new batches of content on Meta on Fridays. Now, Your size, yep, your color, got it. Shopping shouldn't suck, so we made it easy. I like that. So a lot of guys, they know that a lot of men hate shopping and that it's kind of annoying. So they're like, we made it easy. We make shopping not annoying for you. I actually think that's a really good value prop for the kind of avatar that they have. One quick tip I can give you, it's something I talk about with the members in the Shopilab Accelerator. We have a weekly call where we discuss everybody's questions, of course, but there's some killers that join as well. So we end up talking about really high level concepts too. And one of the things we've been discussing is how we're leveraging AI. Of course, this is actually something we talk about every week because every week there's new developments. And one really cool thing that you can do is actually use Gemini, which is Google's large language model, and feed it winning ads. So for example, if we find an ad here that we really find intriguing, we can actually feed it to Gemini. The other LLMs, they don't actually allow you to import videos into their platform, at least not so far, how I've been trying to do it, but Gemini does. My guess it's because, they own Gemini is Google's and Google owns YouTube, so they're maybe a little bit better at video analysis and this kind of stuff. I actually have no idea how it works in the back end, but that's my guess. So that's a really good tip that you can take with you. And then, of course, you can use that information to create your own avatars, right? Your own customer demographic that you want to target with your ads and then just really make it congruent for them. I actually want to go to some of their older ads and see sort of what they were doing before, right? Because this is what got them here. So let's see, whether you're hitting the gym or the grind, the active crew moves with you, made with breathable, sweat-wicking fabric and our signature tailored fit. It's the performance tee that doesn't compromise on style. Was basically so POV, you're more moisture than man. That's kind of funny.
Wearable song. So I switched to these breathable active crews from True Classic. The active crews.
Yeah, so these are pretty clean, simple, native-looking UGC ads. I really like these kind of ads. They're just very organic. They look good in the feed. But it's like a good balance of professional and native. That was pretty solid. I like that POV hook. That was pretty solid. So let's see. Side effects may include winning a marathon, free gym membership. They do talk a lot about Pima cotton, which is their cotton that they use. And that is a bit of a trend, but I did find something actually interesting that I wanted to share with you. So I did a comment report, an AI comment analysis report for their Facebook page. This actually tells you so much, believe it or not. So first of all, they're not getting the most positive comments, which is not super surprising because a lot of people tend to comment negative things on Facebook. Not always, but a lot of times they do. One thing I did notice, though, is that some people are saying that they actually don't like the fact, well, first of all, one of the biggest complaints is sizing complaints, which I would imagine is probably one of the toughest things with fashion. That would drive me crazy. It's just having to worry about all the different sizings and the fits and whatnot. But somebody said, oh man, I can't find it now. He said basically somebody that they didn't like the cotton. They were like, I'm sick of cotton shirts. I want synthetic shirts, which is kind of funny. I feel like that's totally different from the trend where people are opting in for more natural products. But I did want to show you the bamboo shirt trend because it's just a good one. A lot of people really love bamboo fabrics, and it's kind of a more niche down segment of people or a more niche down demographic, maybe not even demographic, but just niche in general, right? But because of that, there's less competition and there could be a lot more ways that you could differentiate. So wanted to share it with you, bamboo shirts, if you wanted to do your own true classic, but with a differentiated angle, try bamboo, right? And maybe try a slightly different demographic. But I actually do feel like maybe a true classic, but targeted at Gen Z or even just younger people, right? Because this seems to be targeted at more of like an older man, not super old, but sort of like middle age. And again, this is why it's helpful to use tools like Gemini, right? To kind of actually dial in your customer avatars. They've clearly done that, right? Like you can see very clearly who they're targeting, like the age group that they're targeting, the kind of person, a lot of tattoos, things like that. Yeah, they also have a great social media presence. Obviously, you can see it here. They're not getting a ton of engagement, but they do have a lot of followers. And that's what happens when you just blast meta ads, is you're going to get a lot more followers. So it's always a good thing, in my opinion, to run ads. Even if you do have a good organic presence, they're not mutually exclusive. I talk about that a lot in our in some of the courses in Shopilab as well. Yeah, I call it sort of the turbocharged traffic strategy. But long story short, what it is just doing both, right? Not just relying on a single traffic source, whether it's paid or organic, but actually, if you view them in a Venn diagram, you want to operate at the intersection of them, right? You want to operate at the intersection of organic traffic and paid traffic. They actually fuel each other. And now you can also add agentic traffic, which is things such as smart reply, right? I would consider this still organic traffic, because it's just automating your engagement, your DMs, everything, just maximizing customer touch points, right? But that still comes from, your social media pages. But again, organic social media pages, but also your paid ads. So that's where you want to be, in my opinion. And they're doing that. They're posting a ton on their page, which is super cool. Even if they're not getting the most engagement, right, it still just shows people that they're active. And it also creates more ads that they can run. So that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and you found it educational and inspiring. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.